I'm Mandy, I'm Emily's mum. Well, Emily lost her brother in 2021, so my son kind of died with an accident in work. And we've been just dealing with that and my kid for the last 5 years.
I'm Emily. I'm a GB high jumper. I competed at the Tokyo Olympics in 2021. So I'm a professional athlete by day, but then by night I work for Wigan Warriors Community Foundation as the athletics programme lead. Like Mum opened with, very brave straight away. In 2021, in August, I was selected to represent Great Britain in the Tokyo Olympics, which is, for any athlete, track and field athlete, it's the biggest dream that you're ever going to have. So I was able to achieve that in 2021. And then a few months later, in November, my brother Connor, he was only 22, so you and Mum are in a very similar situation, so you'll completely understand. He went to work one day and just never came home. He had an accident at work. It was a complete shock for us all. And I remember my dad ringing me, and I can laugh about it because it literally felt like I was in a movie, and I'm on the phone and he says, "Your brother's died." And I was like, "Oh, clearly you're taking the mick, like you're having a joke." And he's like, "No, like he's dead." And I just remember like collapsing to the floor as if I was on the scene of some Oscar-winning performance, but it just completely ruined my life. And the person that you think you're gonna die before and live a full life with is just vanished in one moment. And I've already had the worst day of my life and I'm still alive. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's days in the last 5 years where I really didn't want to be alive anymore. But I'm lucky because I've got my mum and my dad who are really strong, and we kind of just became the Three Musketeers and a tight unit and got through it together. We're very much a family of, you gotta wake up in the morning and you gotta crack on and you've just gotta get on with it. Mainly because Connor would not want us to be sitting around moping and crying about him, because he was definitely life of the party. So after Connor died, the following year in 2022, I actually had the best performance of my career, and my jump was the 4th best in British history of all time, and still is. I'm the 4th best high jumper in British history. But the funny thing is, he was also a high jumper, and his personal best height is still better than mine. So I'm still the 2nd best high jumper in our household. So I'm still trying to chase him down. I knew that life needed to go on, and I needed to live the life that I dreamed of, and I was achieving those dreams despite going through this dark place that I just didn't think I'd get out of. And I was in a constant fight with myself and the world, because why did someone so young have to be taken away in something so fast and out of our control? But I guess, the world's out there to test us in ways that we didn't think were possible, and the days where you don't want to get out of bed or speak to anybody, or you just want to stay asleep until the end of time. But life is worth living, and I wouldn't have the life that I had now if my brother didn't die. And as awful as it is that he's not here, I wouldn't be able to live my life the way I do if it wasn't for him. So yeah, that's my story.
Nice, you'd be laughing at you. And
He'd be jealous, I know that.
I know.
Did you use your sport and your training as a distraction, or was it difficult? Did you have difficult periods where?
I was lucky at the time because the coach I had was also an athlete, and he was like, "If you need to cry, cry." but just give me 90 minutes of work. Let's get the session done, give me 90 minutes, and then you can let it all out. If you can just concentrate for this amount of time, then we're fine. And every day was like that. It was like, if you can just give this amount of time to the thing that you love, then you can deal with the rest of it. You know, those days like I wouldn't eat, I wouldn't want to get out of bed. But then I also knew that the reason that I was high jumping was because of my brother. And that connection that we had with it, I knew that by doing high jump, I was doing it obviously for myself, for my family, for the country, but for him. And for a while he was the reason why. So that did give me like the inspiration to turn up every day and just give it everything I could for that moment in time, and then completely crash. And you know, I was driving to Birmingham like 3 times a week, and you know, I'd be crying driving on the way home, but I knew that I'd put in the work to better myself for training, and I switched to that mindset of I'm good at this and I can be even better. Don't let this affect you, because I'd just had my breakthrough and I knew that, you know, I'd just achieved a lifetime goal of going to the Olympics, and I know that if I'd have retired there and then, he would have hated me. So training just gave me the release that I needed, and just, you know, that concentration on the one thing, and then from there I could just survive. Yeah.
I'm Dave. I'm a rugby league writer, and I'm a facilitator at Andy's Man Club. A few years ago I hit rock bottom, and I didn't know if I was going to be here. And I found Andy's Man Club, and I'm just under 3 years going now, and it saved my life, it saved my relationship, it saved with my wife and my kids. I think from the day it happened, I probably cried in the build up to it, and maybe a couple of times after. But then for years didn't cry. We, me and my partner Chris, we 27th of March 2000, we gave birth to a stillborn daughter with brain damage and spina bifida, and it was awful, as you can imagine. But the 27th of March 2001, she gave birth to our son on the same day, 12 months later. And we try and keep her memory alive with him, but it's so difficult at times, especially on the actual birthday.
Yeah.
And like, I never had anyone say, if you want to let it out, let it out. You always had to seem to be the strong one. So I always regret thinking like that, I didn't have to, I shouldn't cry, I shouldn't show any weakness. And I think that's where men struggled with it, because they always thought they were going to be judged if they showed any weakness.
Yeah.
I know from my experience that I probably wouldn't have someone else saying to me, do you want to cry? And I wouldn't, because men weren't supposed to cry.
Yeah.
I lost my daughter Holly in 2022 to cancer. She was 5, and the Wigan Warriors charity kit this year has been inspired by Holly's story via Derry House. I also work in construction, so construction's got the biggest death rate, I think, for suicide. So it's the high pressures and the mannerisms of construction. People perceive it totally different. But yeah, in the car when you're on your own, that's when your thoughts are flying around, and you know, you're stuck in traffic and you're going to work, and I think about Holly all the time. But
There's something that triggers it.
yeah, so I used to do my crying in the car. So still cry now, but in the car going to work and coming back from work.
Yeah.
You know, she used to have a playlist on my phone, so I still play that when I'm down. I'll play it just to release the sadness out of me.
Yeah.
So Holly was, she was diagnosed with cancer in 2020, June 26th. She was 3 when she was diagnosed, so after numerous of chemotherapy, radiotherapy, she had a kidney removed. She lost her life on the 8th of April 22, so there's dark days, we sort of take a last breath and things like that. So
we're all human beings. When we came into the world as babies, the first thing we did was cry. It's like the number one natural emotion that we have. Whether you're upset, even when you're happy and you're laughing and you can't breathe, you're normally crying as well. It's just the number one emotion that we have. And I think at the time, I had really good people around me, and I felt having, like you say, with Andy's Man Club, I had that safety around me to cry, and I wasn't judged on it. And I think that was the biggest thing, that the space I was in was safe enough to just be vulnerable, and no one was going to take advantage of that.
I think it's quite interesting actually, because you see some people sort of look at elite athletes and think that it's all great watching on TV and that every weekend, but we have our own struggles as well. And the last couple of years, like, Mum passed away and that different stuff go on, so it's interesting to hear people's stories.
You got to say goodbye to Holly. Unfortunately we didn't get to have that. So you're just in disbelief. And even when you know that they were going to go, you're still in disbelief, because you just don't. You look on the news and their kid's gone missing, or someone's had an accident abroad, or there's parents on there like asking for help because their child's missing, and you're watching it and you think, oh, that'll never happen to us. God, you feel for those people. That's never going to happen to us. And then the day it does, you're like, so good.
I've never really understood mental health until this has happened, but now I've got a better understanding of it, and it's not just like somebody losing a child. It could be something. Something triggers something of a childhood, or the pressures, what you guys carry on your shoulders with your audience, and you're in the spotlight all the time, and obviously Wigan Town's a massive rugby town, so I understand there's different types of different people that get it, where before I was just like brushing it to the side, but I've got a better understanding of it now.
I don't think fans think in the moment of what effect it does have on the players. If they see a mistake, they'll automatically just blame someone. So how do you separate that when you're getting a criticism, but it's out the blue, or just the heat of the moment? Do you treat it as heat of the moment, or does it affect you?
I feel like when you're playing, we're not out there to make mistakes. I feel like that's the thing. I feel like every fan just sees the error or the mistake in isolation, and it might accumulate in a game, but when you're out there, you're not really thinking about that. But I know some boys, then they can go online after, say, one bad performance, and then they see multiple people writing things about them. I feel like that's where it drips in, and then at the time not really thinking about it, but then now they're thinking about it for their next game. They take it and carry that with them, and it's just sort of added pressure. And as I said, no one's going out there to make mistakes. We all want to win, we all want to try and perform our best. But I feel like in that sense, it gets carried along, and especially younger boys, they can probably get on there a bit more than so I'd probably say Tomo or myself. People trying to come in and crack it as a youngster, we need to be bringing them up and making sure they're putting their best foot forward, and not trying to bring them down. No one's, as I've said a few times, but no one's out there to make mistakes, and I feel like I hopefully think the fans see that all the time.
How do they feel when it crosses that line though? Because sometimes it goes past a player's performance and they get personal. How do you manage that?
I was going to say, I think when you look for your career, I think you just become a bit more thick-skinned, where, like Jay said, it can probably affect young kids more. I think if you go and look for stuff, you're going to see stuff. It's more like your family still probably suffer more, because they'll see stuff like, what they're saying about Al Luca, whatever it is. But I think when you're in it, you just sort of get used to it's always going to be there if you look for stuff. But,
you shouldn't have to get used to it though, should you?
Yeah, but that's just sport, I feel. I feel like sports are sort of it's a sort of advice for people to let their emotion out, someone might be having a bad day and they see in sport and they take it out. My team not doing well, that's the way they get off the chest. I think that's how
People typing it, I bet they're just trying to target the player, but they've no idea it's spreads about the family on Facebook and Instagram and all that.
I think it's a bit different for me, but you've got to look into it. Like the people that type in these messages on social media have probably never been in that scenario before. So you've got to try and like get past that.
Obviously, being a bit younger than Tom and Jay, I have personally read like messages, and when I was a bit younger, like 18 years old, it probably did get to me because you find out that not all fans are going to love or hate you, you know what I mean? So what Jay said, we're not trying to make mistakes, but you're not always going to have your best game. It probably does affect the families a bit more because I know my mum, she does check. I tell her not to, but she does check. But as Tom said as well, you do get a bit more thick-skinned. So just trying to overcome that and leave it behind, really.
Yeah, it should be used for the positive things, not the negatives. And it just winds me up a wee bit. So I don't very rarely read anything. Not Twitter.
Some of the stuff that gets posted after games, not even just games, just rival fans at each other, and it gets very toxic.
And everything's so clippable. So if you do make a mistake or you respond to something in the moment, like especially if like you lads are playing on TV, people can clip that and then just use it all the time, and you don't actually know what's going on in that player's head in that moment of time anyway. Like outside of the game, they might have stuff going on that they're trying to bury deep down, and then it just comes out in a reaction. And I think sometimes I forget that they're just human beings as well at the end of the day, just like Jay said, trying not to make mistakes, but sometimes the human in us just creeps out and then you kind of can't contain it.
Well, I was going to say, there is like a lot of people struggling out there, and I feel like if someone wants to spread hate or say something nasty, it's usually a reflection of where they're at, inside.
Absolutely,
When you realise that, then you don't really take stuff personal, if you see comments and stuff like that. So, but there is obviously, a lot of people struggling. I think that's why stuff like this is good, because you get stuff off your chest rather than to like trying to let stuff out, whether it's on social media, commentate on your football team or your team.
As part of Mental Health Week this week, what I've done with my lot, because I've got a team of like 6 or 7 people at work, and we've all put a pledge out there. It's like, what one thing are you going to do this week towards making your mental health better? And that mine's it's a simple thing. It's just checking in with all my team every day. Just give them all a ring, make sure they're all right, and just, how are you today? Just little things like that. And there's about 400 people in the whole community in the transformation team in what I'm working. So they've all had to put a pledge on. You don't have to, because you're not made to do it, but if you want to, then it's all online. And
I think that's good though, the more positivity you're out there, people that comes back to you. Whereas if you put negativity out there, you feel negative, that's also going to come back to you. So
it comes with the norm as well.
It does. It's all right, you're going to someone, how are you today? But then
I think there's facts out there, like, you've got to ask someone 3 times if they're actually okay before they'll give you a real answer. Because if you say, are you okay? They'll be like, yeah. I'm like, no, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. No, but are you actually alright? And then they'll be like, oh, no.
I was like that for years, just buried it.
Yeah.
Someone will ask you, alright, yeah. And then the video that Wigan put out the other day, who's the joker in the pack?
Oh,
he's always having a laugh, he's always telling the jokes. Well, that was me, but deep down, there was something else that I didn't get out until, well, it wasn't too late because I turned it around. I was in a job and my line manager just said, is everything alright? And it was just like a normal Friday morning. I said, no. And I just poured everything out to her. I wasn't at a stage where I wanted to end my life, but if I was driving on the motorway and a truck hit me, I didn't care.
So
I wasn't going out to end it, but if it happened, I felt no one cared, so I didn't care. So I opened up that way, and naively I thought, because I've opened up, it would change everything, it'd be fine. And I kept sinking lower, and my step was Andy's Man Club opened in the East Stand here. And my wife came into my office and asked me, would I go to the first one? I said no, straight away. And I could see the hurt in her eyes. I said, right, I'll go to Andy's Man Club. Two reasons, two stipulations. I'm only going 1 week and I'm not going to talk.
Okay.
And I've been going nearly 3 years, every Monday.
Yeah.
So that got me talking. And what we do each week is, it helps, and if I miss it, I really miss it. So.
Feel like you're a part of something like that, like.
Yeah. When I first started, I wasn't going to make friends. It's not something I felt I needed. But the people I've met there, I speak to every day. Or we message every day, and we go on about saving that one person. And that one person was me.
You just realise you're not on your own.
Yeah.
Even refreshing sometimes, like you go home and you'll speak to your family, and you know, like sometimes you'll try and mask it to them because you don't want to hurt them. But it's refreshing to be able to go out and speak to different groups of people that might potentially be going through something similar.
Well, I went with the intention of not speaking, because with Andy's Man Club, you're not forced to do anything. You can turn up, sit in the groups, but you don't have to speak. So I was like, well, I'm not going to talk. But then we have this ball that passes round, and when you've got the ball, that's your turn. No one can interrupt you. It's served me, it's helped me, and my family understand. My youngest understands, and
just recognising that, isn't it? Like getting someone to tell you to go, or almost forcing yourself to go.
Well, I'm not one for, I don't like public speaking. So doing this is a step out of the comfort zone. And we was at an event for AMC, and the mic got passed around, and I was like, I'm not doing it. And my autistic child decided to get hold of the mic, and he said in 10 seconds what I wanted to say. He turned around and said, Andy's Man Club, my dad goes to Andy's Man Club every Monday. I like Andy's Man Club because it keeps my dad safe. And he broke the room. The men and women were crying, and he was like, he said what I couldn't say, and that's why I do it, is to be safe for him, and he understood it. So.
Well, you're doing amazing, because the reflection of your attitude and behaviour is obviously affecting him in a really positive way. So, like I say, you don't know. That's why they're always like, be kind to everybody you meet, because they could be having the shittest day of their life and you just wouldn't even know it, because they look like they're well put together. It's like, I'm sure the lads on the pitch, you've got your game plan, you know what you need to do, but as soon as you leave the stadium, you've got shit to deal with at home that you've been parking for the last 3 hours because you had a job to do. And it's like we're robots, because you have to switch on for one thing, switch off the other. And then, I don't know if you guys feel like that. You've got to kind of switch on for something and then switch off and almost face the reality of life. It's like you've got two personalities, your on-field personality and then your home personality.
I think it's getting better, like, because it can get thrown down your neck all the time. Mental health, mental health, mental health, mental health. But they're not doing it in the right channel. So doing something like this, it's a different niche of...
It all starts with a conversation.
Yeah.
Doesn't it? Yeah.
You know, when you've had like a really bad performance or a good performance, do you, like, if I'm down, I'll have a drink. If I'm happy, I'll have a drink. What do you do to cope with your feelings after a performance, whether it's like good or bad?
Cry. And hide, probably. Go off grid for a bit.
Because you're individual, aren't you?
Yeah.
You guys are a team.
Yeah.
I often sit and like review a game if I know I've not performed very well. I try and, obviously you're more critical of yourself when you watch it back, actually. You might not have performed as bad as you thought. So I often just sit and go through it and click through things, and I actually sometimes have to go and spend time with my family or my niece who will cheer me up. You know, if I've had a crap game and not feeling great about it, I'll often go home and make sure I'm spending time with family, because they're only an hour away, but you don't see them often when you're working and playing. So if I get the chance to, I'll go back and spend time down there and take my mind off it. Wait for training the next time I do a review.
Very much is that though. If you have a shit game or you lose, it can ruin your week, like your weekend. So you just got to But then if you have a good win, like we did on the weekend.
I was going to say, what did you do after the Saints game then?
You get on the piss and you have a good win. You just got to like, get away from it really.
Yeah.
There's nothing I could really do, like with my appendix, like that's, you know, obviously a sport injury, like it happens, you think, we play a game, a sports injury is bound to happen, like I was sort of like could accept that, but yeah, no, it was just out of the blue, and like to miss 5 weeks, and I reckon I've more struggled, like not with the time out, it's actually since I've been back, like I've struggled, like for someone like myself, I'm like very fit, and I've taken me longer to actually like get my legs and get my lungs back, and I was actually starting to question if I was going to be the same. I actually went and spoke to Dr. Brooks about it, and he's like, with a normal sports injury, like you got longer to rehab, like once you've come out of anaesthetic after being under, and he was saying after being under every hour is like 3 weeks of the anaesthetic coming out of your body. So I played after 4 weeks, and I was wondering like what I feel awful, and that's what he said. He goes like, you'd still be getting it out of your body where you have an injury. You got probably 10, 12 weeks before you start playing. It'd be flushing. So that's what I was like starting to do with. I wasn't playing great, and
so in athletics we're quite lucky because we get to choose like which competitions that we do and like plan. Like you do, I don't know, a block of 3 here, have 2 weeks off, and then do another couple of comps there. For you guys with like back to back to back to back every week, how do you deal with like the highs and lows? Let's say the weekend was great because you won, but then like a few weeks ago when you lost, in that 4 or 5 day period after a loss, how do you get yourselves back to come out fighting?
I suppose it's probably hard because like you say, it is every weekend, it's non-stop, you don't get that like rest, and you can't just have a refresh sort of mentally. But then at the same time it is good because there's always another game the week after to try and have a crack. You know what I mean? So in that sense it's sort of just on to the next, like you don't have a shit weekend because you've lost, but you've got to just refocus and get over it.
Sometimes would it affect some lads more than others, especially with less experience?
I feel like the way our coaches are in Maddie, I feel like he does a good job of that, and same to the week stuff. Like we have a good win, we're never up here as a team, and when we have a bad loss, we're never down here. Where the way we review and like reflect the game and do our video sessions, it's always like that.
It's like level, so it's flat. You flat line, you see not high or low.
Exactly right. And we'll pick the things in the loss that we need to fix up, and then and the same thing. Like we'll take the things that we've had a good performance, go bring that in. So you're sort of always like trying to come and close the gap, if that makes sense. And
absolutely.
The stuff with the checking thing, I think Maddie's very good at that. Like he'll get around and he'll ask, and same thing like how we meet in the morning after a game. He'll check in basically like with everyone. We sit there around the TV and feel like he's and like not every coach is like that. Like some are just like footy or rugby as you call it. Sorry, that's footy's Australian, but he's always it's person first, athlete second, which is I think a good place to be at.
Big on that openness in him, being open and talking in the group.
At the end of the day, we are people first before we are the sports person, and I think sometimes it gets lost in translation when the coaches or trainers want something out of you, but some days you just can't give it because the human side of you needs a little bit more care.